Hello everyone, Lawrence here with another video. Today we're looking at a tiny little computer which almost makes me feel bad about Project One. So this is the Zotac Magnus EN1060. Inside of this little black box the size of an ITX motherboard, there's a Skylake CPU, the 6400T, so that's a 2.8 gigahertz CPU, quad core in here. And then we also have a desktop class 6GB NVIDIA GTX 1060. So before I even start talking about the amazing performance or the great port selection, I'm going to talk about build quality. So it's an aluminium frame and like the sides are actually aluminium. And sure, the top is like this matte black plastic with like a glossy circle on top of it. And then there's also a glossy front panel, but it's really well built and I would have no problems whatsoever just chucking it in a backpack, carrying it around with me. So build quality, very good. Now, I'm not a big fan of the way it looks, and I think this chassis has been around for quite a while. Perhaps Zotac should freshen it up a little bit so that it can compete with some of the competition, like the Asus GR8, for example, which in my opinion looks quite a lot better. This is a very simple, understated design, but perhaps a little bit outdated looking. So on the front we have our power button, SD card reader, dual USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports. One of them is a Type-C connector, but it's just a Gen 1 port. And then we also have our audio in and out, so our microphone and our headphones at the front, which I really like. Now, going to the back, there's more ports. So we have dual gigabit Ethernet connections, and I'm a massive fan of that because it means you can either go with multi-channel SMB or you can just hook up like a NAS to it separately. That's great to have those dual gigabit Ethernet ports. What's not so great, and perhaps another small negative, is the Wi-Fi. There's only a single antenna and the Wi-Fi performance is a bit on the low side. So it doesn't perform very well wirelessly, but then who cares when you have dual gigabit Ethernet ports. On the back are also another dual USB 3.0 ports, dual USB 2.0 ports, dual HDMI ports and dual display ports. So you can hook up 4 displays to it and just go with a sweet surround gaming setup if you really want to. So I did mention at the start of the video that this is a bare bones computer. So I put some memory in there from Corsair, just cheap ass memory sticks. And I also put an old SSD in that I had laying around. And then after a week that SSD broke. Probably not at all the fault of the Zbox, it was like a 5-year-old SSD. So for these B-roll shots I did put a hard drive in there. So installing the drives or your memory is completely toolless, it's super easy. Anyone can do it. There's just 2 tiny little thumb screws at the back. You just slide the bottom off and you just put your drives in. Everything's completely toolless. I really love it. It's basically about as easy as it could possibly be. So moving on to my own testing, I actually replaced Project One for a whole 2 weeks with the Zbox, and I only used this computer for everything that I did, including video editing, also some gaming, because at first you would think, okay, it's a Zbox with a GTX 1060, it's a gaming PC and it's small so we can put it on our television. So that's what I did at first. I just hooked it up to a TV, and because it doesn't come with an operating system, you're completely free to go with SteamOS, Linux, Windows, whatever you want you can put on there without spending money on a Windows license if you're not going with Windows. So that's great about it. So I first ran it on my TV, played some games there, and then I was like, yeah, but this computer is capable of so much more than just being an HTPC that I occasionally play Rocket League on. So I replaced Project One with this one, which was an interesting experience because while you may think that the 6400T is a bit slow, and you'd probably be right, the GTX 1060 is actually plenty fast for triple monitor gaming. So I'll show some performance graphs right now, but all you really have to know is that a GTX 1060 is plenty fast to run whatever you want at high to ultra settings on 1080p 60 FPS. Esports titles, I easily got my 120 FPS, so that was all I wanted. Editing videos was perhaps not as great, probably because of the older SSD that I had in there, and of course a 2.8 GHz quad core isn't the fastest CPU out there. But hopefully they'll update it with Kaby Lake. I would really like to see an i7 version, or maybe even a Ryzen version, who knows, of the Zbox, but for now it's actually pretty decent and it's a very nice package. It all works together quite well. And that brings me to my next point, the power consumption. So this CPU, the 6400T, only uses about 35 watts, or at least that's its TDP. So it's pretty easy to cool. And a 1060 uses a little bit more than that, but it's still very well cooled. So there's a side exhaust and a rear exhaust. The side exhaust is for the CPU, the rear exhaust is the GPU. And what really struck me was how quiet this system is. So unless if it's under full load, you can't possibly hear that it's on, which is, to me at least, incredibly important with a computer, because I don't want to be distracted with some fan noise. And this one's completely silent, unless if you're going with maximum load scenarios for a prolonged period of time, but even then, it's very quiet. Temperatures are also great, so it's not throttling at all. We were getting low 70s on both the CPU and the GPU, so no throttling. The GPU was easily boosting to 1911 megahertz on the core, so that was great as well. Overall, I really can't complain about anything with the Zbox. So while I would really like to just keep the Zbox and keep using it as my main computer, I have to give it back to Zotac. I really want to thank Zotac for lending me this unit, because to me it's very interesting. If we just compare it size-wise to a home-built ITX PC, it's way smaller. It's just the size of an ITX motherboard. Price-wise, you're paying around a €100 premium for the 1060 model and a €200 premium for the 1070 model if you're comparing it to building it yourself. But then once you go to like proper ITX small cases like a Dan case, a Sentry, that sort of stuff, it's about the same price. So it's perhaps less upgradable, but it's still way smaller than anything you can build yourself. And as I said, that makes it super easy to just throw it in your backpack, carry it with you. For example, if you have divorced parents, you have a monitor at each parent's house, easy to take with you. If you want to use it at home, use it at work, and you just take your computer with you, again, works perfectly for that. So overall conclusion is it's a great performer, it's priced correctly, it's perhaps a tiny little bit outdated looking, and the single Wi-Fi antenna is not great, but it's super quiet, it plays games very well, it's capable enough for video editing, great networking, wired networking as well with the multi-channel SMB possibilities that we have here, and overall great little device. Anyway guys, if you like this video, please press that like button. If you didn't, hit that subscribe button for when I make a video that you do like. Now if you want to support the channel like the awesome people on your screen right now, there's a Patreon page for that. For now, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next week with a video on probably a laptop or a computer case which is still under NDA. Cheers!